Okay, before you get deep, just like deep into this video, I would just like to state now, so it's very well aware, this video is definitely like me rambling about me switching camera gear setups, which is mostly just for me to verbally process the fact that I'm actually doing this on a camera gear that I have built an entire career. So if you have any comments or relatabilities or whatever it is, comment it below. But if this is a big jambalaya to you, I'm sorry. That's, you know, also praise God for jambalaya. Like, wow. So all that said, here we go. Guys, can we just talk about how messy my room is right now? She is messy. Really happy I checked if that was recording because it wasn't. Okay, so I am here in my house in Boise, Idaho, where I have been living for the last 10 months. And tomorrow I go on a trip to Kenya. I tried to make this video yesterday and I was like, oh, I'll skate to this fun little spot. And then like once I get there, I'll like vlog about, you know, life updates, whatever. I got there and well, you could just see what happened. All right, do it. Yeah. Show us what you got. Oh! So after those children would literally not leave me alone, I was like, all right, I just gotta be nice, hang out with them for a bit. I left and decided to come home and that I would just film it the next day, which is today. Tomorrow, 8 a.m., I get on a plane to go to Kenya for 10 days to do a documentary filmmaking trip with an awesome organization. But I thought that it was about time to make a video that was almost like a love letter to Sony, because this is the last international trip I will be going on, shooting on the Sony a7S II, which has literally been to 12 different countries with me across the span of like the last 3 years. I drove down, when I bought this, I was living in Seattle, Washington. I drove 3.5 hours down to Portland, where there is the beautiful land of no sales tax, and I bought this camera for $2,999.99, the body only, and I had spent the prior like 6 months buying lenses as I could, and as I got the finances to do it and the video projects paid for it, which is like such a fun journey of being a filmmaker, is being able to save up for the equipment that you have wanted for so long. And that is why I'm leaving Sony. Even though the equipment that I'm buying is technically cheaper, but it's just like very different, and I feel like this has served its purpose for what I've used it for. But I'm going more into the documentary filmmaking scape, and the Sony a7S II has been brilliant. I mean, the low light, everything about it, but ultimately I got started shooting photography, and this camera does not care that I started shooting photography because it has a 12 megapixel sensor, like 12.2, okay? And that's great for Instagram. The photos I take are amazing. I truly do believe that the equipment you own doesn't really matter all that much, although it does, of course, make a difference in your story, but it doesn't necessarily make your story. So the photos I've taken with it are amazing, but I don't want them to only live on Instagram. I want them to be blown up and printed out and on walls and in people's like living rooms and in coffee table books. Like, I want them to exist. And with that, I need something that's more megapixels. And so I'm actually making a switch for photo back to Canon, where I started. So, and then as for video, I'm gonna be shooting, there's a plane. Just wait. You know, I just had that moment where like you're like, I'm pretty sure I have something in my tooth, but like I have no clue, and I just looked in the mirror and I didn't. So praise God. But straight up, I'm making them switch back to Canon for photo, and then I'll be shooting all of my video on a Blackmagic Cinema camera 4K. The 6K is out, it's been out, but I looked at all the specs, and to be honest, I don't think I would really use the 6K for the capabilities, considering you can't shoot 4K RAW, which is why I want the 4K anyways. And 6K RAW, like, it's amazing. I know the file sizes, they've done a lot of stuff, but for me, the Blackmagic 4K is gonna be amazing, and I'm planning to use all Canon mount lenses and possibly get some like fun little art lenses or like Canon FD to be able to shoot more like film, cinematic, stuff like that. But ultimately, it's gonna be a very travel run and gun setup with my Canon and my Blackmagic, so I need to be able to have the smallest setup possible while still being able to get an image that, to me, is butter. Like, Blackmagic's skin, like, after shooting on Sony for the last 3.5 years, like, I have built my career on Sony, so I'm not dogging them at all. I think they're incredible. It's just the skin tones are green. I created picture profiles that really helped me out with that situation, but like, in the end, I just felt like I was constantly not necessarily that stoked on the color correction and process, which of course I can always learn more about color correction. But the Blackmagic, I'm so excited for that and Canon. So I thought I should just make this video to basically just say thank you to Sony for doing what it's done and building the career I've been able to live and be able to travel and do documentary filmmaking with organizations and travel for brands and stuff like that. It's been incredible, but I'm so excited to start a more documentary filmmaking landscape and be able to film passion projects, which is kind of like what I'll be shifting into after this last trip to Kenya with the Sony. So if you guys are interested in buying a Sony, I'll be selling mine, a7S II, with basically a good grip of lenses and a Ronin S. You know, I'm kind of just like getting everything to a handheld setup. So I think the Ronin, again, I think the Sony's amazing. Everything about it is incredible. But for this season of life and where I'm going, I won't need it. So that's the update. I'm gonna go to Kenya now. I'm gonna pack my bags. As you can see, the mess of my room, I need to pack really badly. And that's it. Bye guys, I hope you have an awesome day. After I get back from Kenya, I want to start making more videos about video and freelance and filmmaking and building your career, basically using creative storytelling as a platform to do so. And it has absolutely changed my life, and I can't imagine a life without these things. So that's all. Goodbye. Before I like fully break down this setup, I did want to expand a little bit on video specs and criteria for those of you that actually care about those things. So basically, I'm probably going to be switching most likely 100% Blackmagic 4K with the Canon 100mm lens, the macro, the Sigma 18-35, which is a crop sensor, which is really sad to me because once I get my Canon, I'll probably need to buy the 16-35 so that I can vlog with it and tell stories like this with it, which means I'll basically be having two of the same lens, which in that case I might get rid of the Sigma, but the Sigma 18-35 is obviously incredible in low light and bokeh and all the dreamy goodness. And then I'm looking into the Sigma's 24mm or getting a Canon FD50 1.2, which is the film, like vintage lens, but you can put it on with a mount, whatever. And then shooting most of my photography with the 16-35 lens on the Canon EOS R, or potentially thinking of the 60 Mark II. It's hard because if the EOS R shoots 4K cropped, I'm like, I might as well just get the 60 Mark II that then I can shoot 1080 on, and it's not gonna crop, and it's $1,000 less. So if you guys have any ideas about that, maybe let me know. I mean, obviously the EOS R has a 30 megapixel sensor, and I think the 60 Mark II has like a 22 or a 26 megapixel, which in that case isn't that much different. And at that point, it's like, unless you're blowing these things up, that doesn't even really matter. So, you know, there's a lot of things to weigh here, and someone that I know is selling an EOS R used that's in basically brand new condition for a very good price. So I'm like, these are debatable. But the cool thing about a Canon EOS R is that you can record 10-bit, which is just a form of a codec of recording if you're using the Ninja external monitor. So there's potential there of like, well, I could pair that 4K 10-bit with the Blackmagic 4K and then be able to present that to companies that require a 10-bit recording, and everyone's gonna be like, who the frick does that? And it's Netflix, which is basically next year's entire project, is filming a documentary that we're trying to get on Netflix. So we have to make sure we are in those right specs. But with that all said, I mean, I'm not necessarily sad to be leaving Sony. I do have a hint in my mind that as soon as I sell all of my Sony gear and I'm like perfectly happy with the EOS R and the Blackmagic 4K, that they're gonna release the Sony a7S III, and it's gonna be like 14K in the same size body, you know, and all those things, but it's still gonna have like a 10 megapixel camera sensor, which then doesn't help me with photos, which is something I really want to get into. So there comes a point where it's like, what is too good and what do you actually need? And I think what I actually need is a camera that can do both, but then also have my cinema camera, pocket obviously, that is going to give me the look of something that is super professional and beautiful and get me into the filmmaking that I've kind of desired to be in for a long time. So all that said, Sony, I love you. There's really nothing too bad I can say about you because there's different camera models that would do everything the Sony a7S II does, as long with for video with the photo capabilities, but As for the colors and things like that, with the price of a Blackmagic 4K and my like original love being Canon, I'm deciding to go back. If all else fails and I'm like, this was the worst decision I've ever made in my entire life, I will sell my Canon gear. Like, it's not that hard, you know? I've already done that once, I could do it again, but I have a feeling I won't be too disappointed with my decision, because if the EOS R sucks that much, then I could just get a different Canon body or the next mirrorless that they make or something like that. But the Sony has served me incredibly well for almost 4 years now, and the camera I had prior to that was the Canon 60D, and I had that for 6 years, and I took that thing to a ton of countries as well. I think this has been to 12, that other one has been to like 12, yeah, same. Wow, that's crazy. Whoa, maybe it's like the 12th country move on. Wow, that's crazy. We'll see. But that's basically the update. I'm super excited. And I'll be basically walking you guys through the whole journey of switching from Sony to Canon and Blackmagic and what that's like in filmmaking and everything great and delicious that has to do with visuals. So I hope you guys at least enjoy this and it brought you some kind of context for something good. So have a great night, day, morning, evening. I don't know where you are. Goodbye.